Hello everyone, I hope you are all well. So far in the topic indices, we've looked at how to add, subtract and multiply indices or powers. In this video, we are going to look at how to solve problems using negative indices. So to do that, we need to know first how to write negative powers as positive powers and vice versa. And once we know how to do that, we can solve problems using negative indices. So let's first look at the rule that tells us how to do this. So rule number 6, that's in your course notes. So when you've got an expression with a negative power, so here I've got a to the power of negative m, I can write that as 1 over a to the power of m. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples explaining how to do this. So I've got the following expressions where I need to write them with positive indices. So in the first one, I've got x to the power of negative 2. Now, from looking at my rule, I can write this as 1 over x to the power of 2, or x squared. For a to the power of minus b, I can write this as 1 over a to the power of b. In my next example, I've got 5 to the power of negative 1. That would become 1 over 5 to the power of 1. And we know that anything to the power of 1 is itself from rule number 5 in your course notes. So then that is the same as 1 over 5. In the fourth example, we've got 2 to the power of negative 3. So to change that into a positive power, I can write it as 1 over 2 to the power of 3. Now I know that 2 to the power of 3 is the same as doing 2 times 2 times 2, and that is equal to 8. So this can be written as 1 over 8. Okay. In the fifth example, we have x to the power of 3 times, x to the power of 3, and that's being raised to the power of negative 9. So remember rule number 3 in your course notes. When we're raising a power to a power, we multiply the indices. So this is rule number 3, and we're multiplying the indices. So we get x to the power of negative 27. Okay, but we want to write that this as where it has a positive index. So referring to my rule number 6, I can write this as 1 over x to the power of 27. For 5x to the power of negative 4, well, to write that with a positive index, well, since negative 4, this power here, negative 4, belongs to the x, I'm going to leave 5 as it is and divide x to the power of negative 4 by 1. So I get 5 over x to the power of 4. Okay. And then for the last example, I've got 12g cubed divided by 3g to the power of 8. So here I'm going to be using rule number 2 because we're dividing. So this is rule number 2 from your course notes. So when we divide, we're first going to do 12 divided by 3, which is 4. Then I need to do g cubed divided by g to the power of 8. And when we're dividing expression with powers, we're taking away. So we're doing 3 take away 8. So then that becomes minus 5. So I've got g to the power of minus 5. Now I need to change this answer where it has a positive index. So that will then become 4 over g to the power of 5. Okay. So that was a few examples. We are now going to look at filling in your notes on page 35 of your course notes. So that's section 10.2b. So I've got three examples there. In the first one, we are asked to simplify y cubed, which is being raised to the power of 3, then timesing it by y to the power of negative 11. And we need to give our answer with a positive power. So the first thing I'm going to do is work out this here. Okay, so a power is being raised to another power. So this is rule number 3 in your course notes. And when we raise a power to a power, we're multiplying the indices. So then that becomes y to the power of 9. And then we've got times y to the power of negative 11. So now we are going to use rule number 1. Okay, because we're multiplying expressions, we add the powers. So 9, we're doing 9 plus negative 11. 9 plus negative 11 becomes 9 take away 11. 9 take away 11 is negative 2, so then we've got y to the power of negative 2. Now we need to give our answer with a positive power, so using rule number 6, that becomes 1 over y squared. Okay, so our second example, we're asked to evaluate 5 to the power of 0 plus 4 to the power of negative 1. Okay, so this is then equal to, from rule number 4 on your course notes, we know that anything to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So our first term here is 1. Okay, we then use rule number 6 and write the 4 to the power of negative 1 with a positive power. So then that becomes 1 over 4 to the power of 1. Now we know that anything to the power of 1 is itself, so we can write this as 1 over 4. So again, we've used rule number 5 to do this. And then I'm just going to simplify this by adding 1 and a quarter. Now that you can write that as 1 and a quarter and leave it as a mixed number, or you can write that as 5 over 4. Okay, and then finally, the third example, we're asked to find n for which 5 to the power of n is equal to 1 over 25. Okay, so for this one, I know that 1 over 25, if I want to write that as 1 over something with a power, well, I know that 25 is given by 5 squared, so 25 equals 5 squared. So then I can write 1 over 25 as 1 over 5 squared. Okay, now I want this to be in this form here. So I'm going to use my rule number 6, okay, and work backwards. So I'm going to change 1 over 5 squared so that it has a negative power. And that becomes 5 to the power of negative 2. Okay, so that means n is then equal to negative 2. Okay.